So as you either may or may not know, I dare say you would know as you are watching this right now, we at Trollhog Enterprises have decided to create a blog which is going to document... My MIDI keyboard isn't working, that's annoying. It's going to document the making of our album from the writing process, which we are just finishing up now, to the recording, mixing and mastering, which is going to get very tedious, I assume. So today, as in right now, I'm just going to give you a quick rundown of where we're at. Where we're at, we've kind of got about 9 songs written for the album, ranging from 100% finished to about, there we go, working now, to about all sections written but need a bit of a structure. I tend to go a bit crazy with my structuring, so I get the rest of the guys to kind of hone me in a bit, which tends to work well. Makes the songs a bit more bearable. So, to start off with, how is the album going to sound? That's an interesting question, as we have no idea yet. But probably the best way to describe it would be it's a pretty natural continuation from Ramshackle, in that we're kind of taking all the elements from that and just expanding them in every possible direction. So it's faster, it's more epic, it's more bombastic, it's more heavy, but at the same time less metal. It's more folky, but folk in a different context, which I think is quite cool and something we've been trying to work out how we can kind of make what we feel is getting a really stale genre such as folk metal. Like, does the world really need another... Bad example. Does the world need another... Hey. No. So we're kind of trying to work out different contexts in which we can make a use of folk melodies and folk instruments without it, and kind of put in a way that when people hear it, they're like, what the fuck, that kind of is folk, but it isn't, but it sounds cool, but I'm not sure if I like it or hate it, which is kind of a cool concept. For me anyway, maybe it's a stupid concept, I guess we will find out. So in terms of musical inspiration and influences for the album, it's kind of a bit all over the place, and we're more going... In terms of sounds a bit more abstract, we're kind of aiming to sound like a specific atmosphere as opposed to a band or a sound, which I think is quite cool. Leads to a bit more originality as opposed to going, okay, let's make this song sound like Kolbakani and write a Kolbakani song. No. So we're trying to make it a bit more original. So I've got 3 CDs here that I think probably sum up, from my perspective at least. The other guys probably agree on a strong 2 of these. But this is what I've been kind of listening to in my mindset for the album. The first one should be a bit of an obvious and a given. The Master, Frank Zappa. A lot of our reviews and interviews have kind of brought up the Zappa comparison, which is beyond an honor for us, really. Like, we all in the band not only respect him, but listen to his music constantly and learn a lot of ideas from it. I think in terms of the album, probably the most noticeable kind of, I guess, inspiration I say we're using is in terms of Zappa's instrumentation and arrangement. He was, if you're familiar with Frank Zappa, you will know. If you're not, go listen to him right now. But his music is very, very, very colourful in that he uses lots of horns and pitched percussion like marimbas and xylophones in it. So kind of like a wacky orchestra setup in the format of a rock band a lot of the time, which is quite cool. So we're trying to make use of as many different tone colours as we can, really, and still get away with it. The second CD is a bit of an old one, which I think is quite cool. Otig, Wintersorg's folk band from, I guess, I think early 2000s, but maybe late 90s. There's no date on here, so old they didn't have dates back then. But interestingly enough, this was kind of Otig with like the blueprint for the very first Trollhaugen song we wrote, which we wrote, me and Reventus wrote before Trollhaugen, Gormander. So it's kind of interesting we're going back to that, not necessarily in terms of sound as much as atmosphere. This album, to me, sounds very murky and foresty and swampy, and I want to kind of incorporate that really, not gross, but dark and magical atmosphere into our music. There's actually a couple of riffs that started off with me kind of referencing Otig, but now at this point they're all bastardized, not in any way represent this, but I think that's quite cool. And the third album that's actually kind of playing a big role for me in the writing of our Trollhorgen album, and you have to bear with me, is actually Nicki Minaj's Roman Reloaded / The Re-Up, which is the EP that comes with it. And before you switch the video off and burn all your Trollhorgen CDs and t-shirts and signed books and cassette tapes and whatever other memorabilia, or your troll gristle, before you burn that, you shouldn't have it anymore anyway, but this is actually, the second half of this album especially, so like where are we? Track 10, Starships onwards, is kind of like to me, the epitome of summer party time album, which you might not necessarily associate folk metal with, but when you think of it, you might actually like, it's kind of like the outcome is the same, people happy and partying and having fun, but just achieved through a different way. So I'm kind of trying to, in a lot of ways, take a lot of Nicki Minaj's ideas in terms of rhythmic flow especially. We're going to try and use that kind of really fast, hard-hitting vocal pattern to Reventus vocals in terms of growls and kind of character voices, which I think will work out really interesting. And secondly, using the beats, which is something we haven't done previously in terms of having a really strong, solid downbeat. Usually like a lot of beats, so kind of a bit faster, humpa-ish, Finnish polka, a lot of gabs. We still use a ton of that, but in a lot of ways we're using a lot of much more solid downbeats, have some kind of kick drum samples just to really push it, and what the idea is when you hear that live, it's just going to give it this really infectious, pulsating beat, which will kind of, I guess, serve as because the rest of the music is so crazy, that's going to kind of serve as the home base to the song, where you can go, okay, this is the thing I can connect to, while everything around you is just off the hook, for want of a better word, or lack of better description. Okay, so in terms of sounds, it's going to be all over the place.